My wife said, sleeping with you is a chore, like cleaning and cooking. I don't want any of it anymore. In front of her friends. When I walked out, I found out something that made me ruin her life forever. Now she is begging. Sup Reddit. So I, 45 male, met Kristen, 46 female, at a supply chain conference in Denver. She was working at a pharmaceutical booth. I was reviewing vendor contracts for a manufacturing company. We grabbed dinner that night. She talked about crushing quota. I told her about going independent, clearing 85 grand analyzing supply chains from my apartment in Boulder. Long distance lasted 6 months. By spring, she moved to Colorado. Courthouse wedding that summer, just immediate family. Her parents Gerald and Helen from Scottsdale, my aunt and uncle from Montana. Megan came about a year later. Carson followed 4 years after that. Kristen took maternity leave both times, jumped back into sales fast. I worked from home, handled most of the parenting. First years were survival mode, but we made it work. Things shifted hard around our 17th year of marriage. Kristen started pulling back from everything at home. The cooking stopped first, then the cleaning. Said she was exhausted from work, needed to decompress. I picked up the slack without complaining initially. Megan had turned into her mother's mini-me at 16. Same entitled attitude, the eye rolls, the sighs and disappear when I asked her to help. Kristen encouraged it, called it independence. By the time she turned 17 in January, she barely acknowledged my existence unless she needed money or a ride. I noticed. I always notice. I just don't react until I'm ready. February. I hit my limit. Came home from a client meeting to find dishes piled in the sink for 4 days. Laundry overflowing in the hallway. Kristen and Megan watching reality TV like nothing existed outside their bubble. I handled Carson most evenings. Homework help, dinner, bedtime. Became our routine. Kid didn't complain. He was 12, mostly wanted to play Fortnite anyway. I stood in the doorway that Tuesday evening. Looked at the mess, then at them sprawled across the sectional. Neither of you are going to help with any of this? Kristen didn't look up from her phone. I had a brutal day, Connor. 3 client calls back to back. Can you just handle it tonight? You've had a brutal day every day for 5 months. I'm working too. I'm also cooking every meal, doing all the laundry, cleaning the bathrooms, helping Carson with homework. What exactly are you contributing? Megan rolled her eyes. God, Dad, why are you always nagging? Mom works way harder than you. She actually has a real job with real pressure. You just sit at a computer in your sweatpants. Cold settled in my chest. The calm before decisions get made. A real job? I cleared $92,000 last year from that computer. I also managed to cook dinner every night, keep the house clean, and be present for both of you. What's your excuse for not even loading a dishwasher? Kristen finally looked at me. Something flickered behind her eyes. Almost apologetic. You're right. I'm sorry. Work has just been insane with the new territory restructuring. I promise I'll do better once things calm down. Megan, you should help more too. Megan shrugged. Fine. Whatever. Empty promises. Both of them. But I logged the exchange in my head, added it to the mental file I'd been building for months. 2 weeks later, Kristen proposed the annual lake cabin trip with her college friends. 6 couples, 3 days at Lake Dillon. We'd gone the past several years. The trip was scheduled for late May, giving us a few months to prepare. She brought it up while I was folding laundry Saturday morning. Her laundry, specifically. The basket she'd left untouched for 9 days. The cabin trip is late May. Should be good this year. I nodded, kept folding. Week before the trip, Kristen went shopping like she was preparing for Fashion Week. New hiking outfits, new swimsuits, new everything. $412 at REI alone. Another $200 at Athleta. I threw 3 t-shirts and swim trunks in a duffel bag. Friday morning in late May, we loaded bags into the Subaru. Megan stayed home because she had important plans with friends. I drove while Kristen texted constantly. Carson was staying with my Aunt Kathy in Boulder for the weekend. Megan had been supposed to watch him while we were gone, but she dropped him at Kathy's Thursday night, claiming she had important plans she couldn't cancel. Didn't even ask me first. Just did it. When I'd called to check on him Friday morning, Kathy said Megan had barely stayed 5 minutes before rushing off. Some friend she was. The weekend was about to right itself. We rolled up around 2. Big wooden A-frame structure. 3 stories. Massive wraparound deck overlooking the water. 5 other cars already parked in the gravel lot. I grabbed bags while Kristen rushed ahead to greet everyone. The group was in the kitchen unpacking coolers. Zoe hugged Kristen enthusiastically, then gave me a warm welcome. Ryan gave me that knowing nod we'd developed over 20 years of friendship. Blake pulled up 30 minutes later in a new Audi Q5. Turned out Heather had invited Kristen's ex from college, who'd just moved back to Colorado. Kristen spotted it through the window and practically sprinted outside. I watched from the kitchen island as they embraced, his hand resting on her lower back, her smile brighter than I'd seen in months. He came inside all confidence and charm. Expensive watch, styled hair, polished sales director energy. Shook my hand with practiced firmness. Connor, man, great to finally meet you properly. Likewise, Kristen's mentioned you exactly twice in 18 years. His smile faltered for half a second. Kristen shot me a look. First evening went smooth enough. Grilled steaks, played cards as the sun dropped behind the mountains. Blake fit into the group seamlessly. The wives seemed charmed. Kristen positioned herself near him throughout dinner. Old friends catching up. Saturday morning brought a group hike through the Aspens. Blake walked beside Kristen for most of the trail. The two of them deep in animated conversation about old times and inside jokes nobody else understood. I hung back with Ryan, taking in the mountain scenery. They seem awfully friendly up there. Old college friends reconnecting. You're really okay with this? I'm watching her show everyone exactly who she is. That's worth more than jealousy. Ryan stared at me. Jesus, man. Back at the cabin for lunch, Kristen sat between Blake and Zoe at the long farmhouse table. That afternoon, most people napped. Kristen and Blake volunteered to take kayaks out. Gone almost 90 minutes. You should have joined us out there. Looked like you were having fun without me. Blake's hilarious. Forgot how much energy he brings. I noticed. She caught my tone but didn't engage. Dinner Saturday was a full group production. Everyone cooking, wine flowing, energy building. Kristen and Blake entertained the table with college stories that had people laughing until they cried. Then came the fire pit. By the time we migrated outside after cleaning up dinner, I was feeling almost relaxed. Temperature was perfect for late May, stars starting to emerge overhead. Someone got a proper fire going while people arranged chairs and grabbed blankets. I claimed a spot on a thick log bench with a clear view of everything. Kristen sat next to me initially, her hand on my knee. 20 minutes in, Blake stood up and repositioned his chair closer to the flames. Said something about wanting a better view of the constellations. Then he looked at Kristen. Hey V, come check this out. You can actually see Orion perfectly from here. She got up without hesitation. Stood beside him, their shoulders touching as he traced invisible lines between stars. I watched from across the fire, expression neutral. Then Kristen dragged her chair over, planted it directly beside Blake's. The group got noticeably quiet. Zoe's eyes flickered between me and them. Someone cracked a weak joke. Conversation slowly resumed. But Kristen stayed right where she was. As the evening wore on, Blake's hand eventually came to rest on her knee, not hidden, right there for everyone to witness. I sipped my water slowly, waited, then gravel crunched. Headlights swept through the pine trees. A car door slammed. Megan walked into the firelight. Megan, what are you doing here? She looked past me toward her mother. Kristen's face lit up. Surprise! I invited her up this afternoon. Thought it'd be nice to have her here for the rest of the weekend. You invited her to an adult couples trip without telling me? It's basically a family trip. She's family. Megan walked over and positioned herself on Kristen's other side. The three of them arranged together now. Blake, Kristen, Megan. Deliberate formation. Megan looked at me across the dancing flames with something cold and victorious. Blake leaned close and whispered something in Kristen's ear. She giggled loud enough for everyone to hear. Her hand went to rest on his chest. His arm wrapped around her shoulders. Megan smiled. Not shocked. Not uncomfortable. Smiled like she was watching exactly what she expected. Zoe stood up abruptly. Kristen, what exactly are you doing right now? I'm enjoying myself with someone who actually appreciates my company. Is that suddenly illegal? Ryan's jaw tightened. That's your husband sitting right there. My boring husband who works from home in sweatpants all day. Who never takes me anywhere exciting anymore. Who treats me like a roommate instead of a woman who has needs. She turned and locked eyes with me across the fire. Smiled with that condescending, pitying expression. Sleeping with you is a chore, Connor. Like cleaning and cooking. Just something I have to check off to keep the household running. You want the truth? That's the truth. Absolute silence. Everyone frozen. Zoe looked horrified. Ryan froze mid-motion. Megan broke it. My 17-year-old daughter's speaking up for the first time. Mom's been unhappy for years, Dad. You're just too oblivious to notice. You're boring. You're predictable. You're why we're all miserable in that house. Honestly, sometimes I wish you just die so we could actually live. I stared at my daughter. Processing. I set down my water deliberately. Stood up slowly. Appreciate the honesty, both of you. Kristen rolled her eyes. Don't be dramatic about it. I'm just finally being honest after years of pretending. No, I mean it. You've both just shown everyone here exactly who you really are. That's worth something. I looked at Ryan. Thanks for the hospitality. Appreciate you having us. Connor, wait! I turned to Megan. You drove here yourself. You can drive back whenever you want, or ride with your mother and her boyfriend. Your call. Her face went white. And Kristen, enjoy the rest of your weekend. Make the most of it, because these will be your last good days. I walked toward the cabin. Didn't rush, didn't storm off. Just moved with quiet purpose while voices erupted behind me. Grabbed my duffel bag, checked I had my wallet and keys, and headed straight for the Subaru. Got in, started the engine, backed out of the gravel lot while shadows moved on the deck. People arguing, gesturing. Didn't matter anymore. 3 hours home alone, classic rock playing low, windows cracked open. The cold mountain air helped me think with perfect clarity about what came next. Got home around 1 in the morning. House was dark and empty. Carson was safe at Kathy's. I'd pick him up in the morning, explain everything when he was older and could understand. For now, I sat alone in the kitchen, phone lighting up constantly. From Kristen demanding I come back. From Megan calling me pathetic. From Zoe apologizing profusely. From Ryan asking if I was okay. I ignored all of them. Sunday morning, I picked up Carson from Kathy's and made him breakfast instead. Scrambled eggs and toast, put on ESPN. Kristen showed up around noon, pounding on the door demanding to be let in. I didn't answer. The pounding continued for maybe 20 minutes before finally stopping. I watched through the blinds as she climbed into an Uber, probably heading to her parents' place in Scottsdale. Fine by me. That afternoon, I started digging through Kristen's digital footprint, while Carson was at a friend's house. Her iCloud had been synced to the family computer since she set it up years ago. Never bothered changing the password, because she never imagined I'd actually look. Found everything within 2 hours. Texts with Blake going back 4 months. Hundreds of them. Photos I wish I could unsee. Videos that made my stomach turn. Location data showing overnight stays at his downtown condo on nights she claimed she was at regional sales conferences. Hotel receipts for romantic weekend getaways I never knew existed. The "sleeping with you is a chore" comment at the cabin wasn't just cruelty, it was the truth. She'd been getting what she needed elsewhere for months while treating me like the household manager. But the real gut punch was the text with Megan. Mother and daughter had been coordinating this entire deception together. Megan giving real-time updates on my schedule, covering for Kristen's absences, running interference whenever I got suspicious. One text from March made my blood run cold. "Dad's taking Carson to his basketball game Saturday afternoon. You and your friend have the whole house to yourselves for hours. He's so completely clueless, lol. Have fun, mommy." I saved everything to 3 separate drives. Printed hard copies of the worst exchanges. Forwarded backups to a secure email account. Then I called my lawyer and scheduled Monday morning. Monday afternoon, I came home early from a client meeting to grab files I'd forgotten. House was empty. Carson at basketball practice. Kristen still at the cabin, presumably. I noticed it immediately when I walked past my office that I hadn't entered in 3 weeks. The empty space on the bookshelf where my grandfather's pocket watch had sat for 15 years. 18-karat gold. Passed down through 3 generations. Worth maybe $8,000, but priceless for what it represented. The only physical thing connecting me to a man who meant everything to me growing up. Gone. I searched the entire office. Then the house. Nothing. Called my Aunt Kathy. "Did Carson mention anything about my grandfather's watch?" "No. Why would he? He knows not to touch that. It's missing." "Connor, that boy has known not to touch that watch since he was 5 years old. He wouldn't." I checked the bank accounts. My personal account showed no unusual activity. Kristen's showed a deposit from 2 weeks ago. $7,800 from Mile High Gold and estate buyers. Everything went cold and clear. I sat at my desk for 20 minutes, thinking, calculating. Then I drove to the beauty supply store. Kristen had always been obsessive about her hair. Salon appointments every 6 weeks. High-end products that cost more than groceries. That thick auburn hair was her favorite thing about herself. She'd mentioned once she'd rather lose a limb than lose her hair. I bought professional-grade hair removal cream, the kind for chemical depilation. Went home and carefully mixed a measured amount into her expensive shampoo bottle. Not enough for chemical burns. Just enough to guarantee significant loss over the next few washes. Then I waited. Kristen came back Tuesday evening. Let herself in like nothing had happened. I was in my office when I heard her moving around upstairs. Carson was still at practice. I heard the shower turn on. Heard the water running for her usual 20 minutes. Then silence. Then I heard it. A sound I'd never heard from Kristen before. A high-pitched, strangled noise. I waited. Footsteps pounding down the stairs. Fast. Panicked. She appeared in my doorway, soaking wet, wrapped in a towel. Her hair was still damp, and in her trembling hands, she held clumps of it, thick auburn strands coming out in patches. "Connor," her voice shook. "Something's wrong. My hair is falling out. Look at this. Look at this." I leaned back in my chair, looked at the hair in her hands, at the visible patches of scalp showing through. Let a slow smile cross my face. "Wow, that's rough. This isn't funny. Something's wrong with my shampoo. Did you do something to it?" "Me? Why would I do anything to your shampoo?" "Because you're angry about the cabin. Because you're trying to punish me." I stood up slowly, walked closer to get a better look. The damage was significant. Large sections coming out at the roots. Almost looks like chemical hair loss. Like someone used depilatory cream or something. Must be stressful, losing your hair like that. Her face went from panicked to furious. "You did this. I know you did this. Prove it." She was shaking now, still clutching the wet clumps of hair. "I'm calling the police." "Go ahead. Explain to them why you were using shampoo at a house you don't live at anymore. After what you did at that cabin." "This is my house, too." "Is it? Let's talk about that, actually." I walked back to my desk, picked up the bank statement I'd printed. "Let's talk about the $7,800 you deposited 2 weeks ago from Mile High Gold and estate buyers." Her face went white. "Where's my grandfather's watch, Kristen?" Silence. "Where is it?" I needed money for... You sold my grandfather's watch. The only thing I have left from him. To fund hotel rooms with Blake. It was just sitting there collecting dust. You never even wore it." Something cold and permanent settled in my chest. "Get out." "What?" "Get out of my house. Right now." She looked down at the hair still in her hands, then back at me. "You can't kick me out. This is my house, too. You can't just..." "I can, and I am. You sold a 3-generation family heirloom to pay for your affair. You told me sleeping with me was a chore in front of everyone we know. You turned our daughter into your accomplice. And now you stand here with your hair falling out and expect what? Sympathy." "Connor, please. You have 5 minutes to get dressed and get out before I call the police." "You're doing this because of the hair? Because I'm upset about my hair?" "I'm doing this because you sold my grandfather's watch. Because you're a liar and a cheat who involved our daughter in your affair." "The hair? That's just karma." She ran back upstairs. I heard frantic movement, drawers slamming. She came back down 4 minutes later, dressed, still dripping, more hair coming out as she moved. "This isn't over, Connor. When I'm done with you in court, you won't have this house, you won't have money, and you won't have Carson." Looking forward to it. She grabbed her purse and keys, slammed the door hard enough to shake the frame. I sat in the dark for a long time after that. Thinking about what came next, Friday morning, my phone exploded. 17 missed calls, 43 texts, each one more hysterical than the last. I let it ring. Finally answered on attempt 18. What did you do to me? My hair is falling out in clumps. Still? Might want to see a doctor about that. Stress-related hair loss can be serious. Don't play games. I know what you put in my shampoo. I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm going to the police. With what evidence? Good luck explaining selling your husband's family heirlooms to fund your affair. Silence. Then her voice went cold. You're going to pay for this. I'm taking everything in the divorce, the house, the retirement accounts. Full custody of both kids. We'll see. She hung up. Saturday afternoon, Kristen showed up with Megan in tow, both of them standing on my porch with matching expressions of righteous fury. Kristen was wearing a hat pulled low. When she yanked it off to show me, I could see how much worse it had gotten. Massive patches, completely bald. What remained was thin and breaking. I leaned against the doorframe, studied the damage. Wow, still falling out? That's really unfortunate. Have you considered just shaving it all off? Might look better than whatever this is. You monster, Megan hissed. Look what you did to her. I didn't do anything, but I have to say the new look is bold. Very chemo chic. Kristen's hands were shaking. You put something in my shampoo and we both know it. Prove it. File a police report. Explain why you were in my house using my products. This is my house too. Actually, let's talk about rights and ownership. Since you brought it up, I straightened from the doorframe. You sold my grandfather's watch without my permission. That's theft of marital assets. You used that money to fund an affair. That's dissipation of marital property. And then you had the audacity to tell me sleeping with me was a chore in front of everyone we know. Megan looked between us, confused. What's he talking about? What watch? Your mother sold your great-grandfather's pocket watch. 3 generations of family history, worth $8,000. Sold it to pay for hotel rooms with Blake. It was just sitting there, Kristen shrieked. Just collecting dust. My hair was the only beautiful thing I had left, and now look at me. Your hair is more important than Carson's inheritance? Yes, because I have to look at myself every day. That watch was just junk on a shelf. Megan stared at her mother, something shifting in her expression. I pulled out my phone, dialed 911. What are you doing? Kristen's voice went shrill. Calling the police. You're trespassing on my property. Mom, we should go, Megan said quietly, tugging her arm. No, I'm not going anywhere. He can't just... I gave my address to the dispatcher. 2 individuals refusing to leave after being asked multiple times. You have about 8 minutes, I said calmly. I suggest you're gone by then. Megan pulled harder. Mom, let's go. Now. Kristen grabbed her hat, jammed it back on her damaged head. This isn't over. Not even close. They left. The police showed up 6 minutes later. I filed a trespassing report. Sat on my porch after they'd gone. Felt absolutely nothing. The divorce was brutal. But not for me. My lawyer did father's rights work. He scanned my evidence and started mapping temporary orders, not fantasies. Texts proving coordinated deception with a minor child. Dissipation from the affair. Trespass report. Witnesses. School records. What about the shampoo? What shampoo? I don't see any evidence of anything. Exactly. Colorado is no fault, so adultery didn't matter. The money did. Every hotel, dinner, trip, and the heirloom sale got logged as dissipation and theft of marital assets. The court ordered a CFI. Kathy spoke. Carson's coach spoke. Ryan testified about the cabin. Kristen showed up angry, scattered, and couldn't answer basic questions about Carson's schedule. Judge cared about stability, not her excuses. Temporary orders kept Carson with me. Kristen got supervised parenting time at first, with a step-up plan tied to an evaluation and consistent behavior. I kept the house, primary custody, most liquid assets and retirement accounts. She kept her car, personal stuff, and a mountain of legal fees. Megan, now 18, chose to stay with her mother full-time. Made that declaration formally in court. Said she wanted nothing to do with me ever again. Her choice. Blake disappeared the moment legal proceedings started. Blocked Kristen on everything. Told mutual friends he wasn't looking for that kind of drama. Convenient. He got to play the caring boyfriend when it was fun and exciting, then vanished the second real consequences appeared. Left Kristen holding the bag entirely. But I wasn't done with Blake. I'd done my homework during the divorce. Blake worked as regional sales director for a medical device company, one of the big ones with corporate offices in Minnesota. I spent 3 evenings reviewing their publicly available ethics policies and employee handbook. They had strict rules. Relationships with married clients or business partners were explicitly forbidden. Creating reputational risk for the company was grounds for immediate termination. Kristen had been a pharmaceutical sales rep. Their industries overlapped constantly at conferences, trade shows, professional networking events. They'd likely met at dozens of the same venues over the years. Professional contacts everywhere who knew them both. I compiled everything methodically. Photos from the cabin showing Blake with his arm around a married woman. Screenshots of texts between Kristen and Blake discussing their relationship while she was still married, complete with timestamps and metadata. Receipts from hotels charged to his corporate card during business trips that coincidentally aligned perfectly with Kristen's schedule. Conference registrations showing them both attending the same events in different cities while claiming to be there for business. The package was thorough, professional, and completely damning. I created an anonymous email account, Sent everything to his company's ethics hotline with a simple subject line. Regional Sales Director Blake, ethics violation documentation. Then sent copies to their HR department and his direct supervisor for good measure. Blake was fired within 2 weeks. I heard through Ryan, who heard from someone in that industry circle. Blake tried to fight it initially, threatened legal action, claimed the relationship started after Kristen's separation. But the timestamps on the texts and hotel receipts made that impossible to defend. The company's legal team reviewed everything and determined he'd violated multiple ethics policies and used company resources to facilitate an affair with a married woman in his professional network. Gone. 24 hours to clear his desk. Word spread fast in their industry. Medical device and pharmaceutical sales is a small world where everyone knows everyone. His reputation was radioactive. His LinkedIn showed open to work for 8 months before he finally found something. Different state, different industry entirely. Selling insurance or some equally mundane product. Significant pay cut from his previous six-figure director position. When I heard through Ryan that Blake had lost his job, I felt absolutely nothing. Actions have consequences. He learned that the hard way. By December, Kristen had lost her job too. Pharmaceutical companies don't love when their sales reps show up to client meetings with obvious hair loss and barely concealed emotional instability. The stress of the divorce, legal fees, public humiliation, it all compounded. No more six-figure income. No more President's Club trips. No more VP ambitions. She moved to Scottsdale with her parents, Gerald and Helen's house in the suburbs, trying to figure out how everything fell apart. I should have felt bad about how thoroughly her life imploded. Tried real hard to feel guilty. Nothing. Every time I questioned myself, I'd remember her saying sleeping with me was a chore. Remember Megan telling me to die. Remember my grandfather's watch sold to fund hotel rooms. Then I'd feel just fine. Carson thrived. Grades improved dramatically. He seemed lighter, like a weight had been lifted. He did supervised visits without complaint, but never asked to see her more. Kids aren't stupid. They know who shows up. I rebuilt my consulting business. Cleared $130,000 by November. Started dating Morgan, a legal assistant Ryan's wife introduced me to. Straightforward, honest, didn't play games. Revolutionary after 18 years of manipulation. I thought it was over. Then the begging started. First week of March, about 10 months after the cabin, Helen called from a number I didn't recognize. Connor, we need to talk. About Kristen and Megan. Not my problem anymore, Helen. Gerald and I can't keep doing this. We're 72 and 70 years old. Kristen lost the condo we co-signed on. Her legal bills wiped out her savings. Megan won't work. Just parties constantly. Still not my problem. She's your daughter, Connor. She's an adult who made her choice. She made a mistake. She's only 18. At 17, she helped her mother cheat for 4 months. Showed up at that cabin to humiliate me. Called me furniture. Told me to die. That's not a mistake. That's a pattern. Silence. We lost our house. The bank foreclosed last week. We're living in a motel. All 4 of us in one room. Gerald's pension barely covers it. That sounds difficult. Have you no compassion? I had plenty for 18 years. Until your daughter compared sleeping with me to a household chore in front of everyone. Until Megan helped her cheat. Until Kristen sold my grandfather's watch to fund hotel rooms. Compassion has limits. So you'll let your own child suffer? My child is Carson. He's doing great. On a roll, varsity basketball starter, happiest I've seen him in years. Megan chose to be her mother's accomplice. She's 18. Adult decisions come with adult consequences. Helen's voice cracked. Please. We're desperate. Gerald's health isn't good. We just need help getting back on our feet. No. Connor, your daughter destroyed my marriage, turned my child into her accomplice, sold my grandfather's watch, then tried to frame me as the villain. Now you want me to fund her recovery? That's insane. What about Megan? Forget Kristen. Just help your daughter. She had my guidance for 17 years. She chose to ignore all of it. She texted updates on my schedule, called me boring furniture, told me to die. Let her figure out who she wants to be next on her own. You're heartless. I'm done being anyone's safety net. You all made your choices. Live with them. I hung up. Blocked the number. Morgan came over that evening. I told her about the call. They're asking for money? Sounds like they've lost everything. And you said no. Without hesitation. She squeezed my hand. Good. You don't owe them a rescue mission. 2 weeks later, Megan showed up at my door. Saturday morning. Making breakfast for Carson when the doorbell rang. She stood on my porch looking smaller than I remembered. Thinner. Exhausted. Dark circles under her eyes. Can we talk? No. Please, Dad. Just 5 minutes. You had 17 years. You spent them helping your mom cheat and telling me to die. We're done. I'm sorry. I didn't understand. You understood perfectly. You just didn't care about consequences. Now you're facing them and want me to make them disappear. Not happening. I just want to apologize properly. Your apology means nothing. Apologies are words anyone can say. You showed me who you are through your actions. I believe what you showed me. Can't you give me one chance to prove I've changed? You've had 6 months since the divorce to show me. Instead, you dropped out of school and party constantly. That's not change. That's panic when the safety net disappeared. Her eyes filled with tears. I didn't know where else to go. Should have thought about that before you chose Team Mom. Before you showed up at that cabin to help humiliate me. Before you told me to die. I was stupid and young. You thought I was a doormat who'd take whatever abuse you both decided to dish out. You were wrong. Leave my property. Dad, please. I'm not your dad anymore. You gave that up. Don't come back. I closed the door, watched through the window as she stood there crying for 5 minutes before walking to the bus stop. Carson had heard the exchange. That was harsh. She made her choice. This is what consequences look like. She came back twice more over the next month. Once alone, once with Helen. Same tears, same speeches about being young and stupid. Same answer. Door closed. Felt nothing. Life moved forward. 2.5 years after that night at the cabin, Carson was 15. Sophomore year, varsity basketball starter, maintaining a 3.8 GPA, thriving. We'd built a genuinely good life together. Morgan had moved in during the summer. Things between us were solid. She brought quiet strength without trying to fix what wasn't broken. Then the doorbell rang one Saturday morning. I opened it to find all 4 of them on my porch in the November cold. Kristen, Megan, Gerald, Helen, and a rental SUV parked in my driveway. Stuffed tight. Megan was clutching a manila folder with receipts. Cheap paper. I'm sorry, Dad. 19 years old, gripping paperwork like it could save her. I leaned against the doorframe. You've got to be kidding. Kristen stepped forward. Connor, please, just hear us out. No, I've been through anger management. Therapy twice a week. I've worked on myself. I'm not the same person. When you called sleeping with me a chore? When you sold my grandfather's watch to fund hotel rooms? Which version aren't you? All of it. I've changed completely. Megan needs her father. I looked at Megan. The folder trembled in her grip. She'd lost more weight. Dark circles like bruises. Megan told me I was boring furniture. Told me to die. Helped you sneak around with Blake. Texted you updates on my schedule. At 17, she knew exactly what she was choosing. I taught her that. I poisoned her against you. It's my fault, not hers. Gerald cleared his throat. Connor, I'm not defending what they did, but Helen and I lost our house. We're 74 and 72 years old. We can't support them both anymore. Maybe you should have raised her with better values the first time. He flinched. Kristen lowered herself to her knees on my cold porch. Please. I'm begging you. Not for me. I know I don't deserve anything. For Megan. She needs her father. Megan's voice came out small. I'm sorry, Dad. I believed Mom when she told me you were the problem. I was stupid and wrong. Helen produced an envelope. We wrote it all down. A complete apology, taking full responsibility. She tried to hand it to me. I didn't move. And the SUV? Gerald exhaled heavily. We got kicked out 3 weeks ago. Couldn't make rent. Everything we own is in those bags. We thought maybe... You thought you could just move in with me. Silence. Their desperate faces said everything. I looked at this pathetic scene. My ex-wife on her knees. Her elderly parents broken and exhausted. My daughter clutching a folder like proof of change. A rental SUV stuffed with everything they owned because they'd burned every bridge, and I was the last stop. 2 years ago, this might have worked. Some previous version of Connor might have caved to guilt or family obligation. But I'd spent 2 years learning I was worth more than being someone's safety net. More than being furniture. More than being the backup plan they only remembered when everything else failed. No. Kristen looked up. No. No to all of it. You cannot move in. We are not reconciling. You don't get to use Megan as leverage. Connor, please. When Megan made her choice, she told me to die. Said I was boring furniture that should have been thrown out. She made those choices with full awareness. You both did. Now you live with every single one. I pulled out my phone. Gerald stepped forward. What are you doing? Calling the police. You're trespassing. We'll leave immediately. You showed up unannounced with a moving truck, expecting to guilt and manipulate your way back into my life. That's not a reunion. That's an ambush. And I don't tolerate ambushes. I dialed. Gave my address. Explained there were 4 individuals refusing to leave my property. They'll be here in 10 minutes. I suggest you're gone before they arrive. Gerald grabbed Helen's arm. Started pulling her toward the SUV. Kristen scrambled to her feet, mascara running. Is this really who you want to be? Someone who lets his own daughter suffer just to punish her mother? You think you made me this person? Wrong. I was always this person underneath. You just stopped paying attention after you decided I was boring furniture not worth noticing. Now you're facing someone who knows exactly what he's worth. I looked at Megan one final time. She'd dropped the folder. Just stood there crying, finally understanding some bridges can never be rebuilt once you burn them completely. Part of me felt something stir. The dad part that never fully dies. The part that remembered teaching her to ride a bicycle and helping with impossible math homework and being present for 17 years. But then I remembered her face when she called me furniture. Her texts about how pathetic I was. Her showing up at that cabin to help her mother humiliate me. Her telling me to die. At 17, she wasn't a helpless child. She was old enough to choose deliberately. And she chose. Goodbye, Kristen. I closed the door. Watched through the window as they hurriedly loaded back into the SUV. The police cruiser turned onto our street just as they were pulling out. The officer took my statement, documented everything, wrote up the trespassing report. Carson came downstairs while the officer was finishing, looked at me with those clear eyes that understood more than most teenagers. They showed up again? Last time. I made that clear. Good. The officer left. I made us breakfast. Scrambled eggs, toast, orange juice. Morgan joined us, kissed the top of my head, poured coffee. Didn't ask questions she already knew the answers to. Normal life, built on boundaries and self-respect instead of guilt and obligation. Guys, we are so close to hit 100,000 subscribers on this channel. If you are not subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. It really helps hit that 100,000 mark. Thanks for making this dream come true.